We are delighted to say it is a glorious day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The third day of practice for the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500 begins here and now. But let's take a little look back at yesterday's action here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We did get cars on track after a small delay for rain in the morning, and when we did, it was quite the day of practice. Some familiar faces on hand as well.
Yeah, nice to have Team Penske's Joey Logano come watch Indy practice for his very first time, and Scott McLaughlin with Team Penske was looking mighty quick out there. This was on board with Santino Ferrucci, his air hose dislodging itself, magnetically affixed typically, but the story of the day for me was really Penske and Ganassi once again flexing big muscle in practice. Those two teams occupying the first 4 spots on the practice speed.
Yeah, and once the track cleared up with some of the lost track time that we've had, guys were eager to get into race prep. You saw a lot of race running right off the bat. Kyle Larson trying to get refamiliarized, reacclimated with his IndyCar in race trim, doing a great job so far.
A small pause for rain, but this man, Mr. Perfect, 4 wins out of the opening 5 races of the season, was the fastest driver of the day and of practice so far with a 2:27.546. But look at that, the Ganassis, the Penskes taking control of things here at Indianapolis. Today we have just today and tomorrow remaining of practice, then into qualifying May 17th, 18th, another practice day on the 19th. Carb Day comes your way next Friday before the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. May 25th, coverage starting 10 a.m. on Fox. Right down to pit lane and Georgia.
Well, good afternoon, guys. As you mentioned, qualifying temps and winds a little bit gustier than it is today. Today, it is beautiful at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It feels like a practice day, so hopefully no rain later in the forecast. Josef Newgarden, you mentioned he's going for 3 in a row. They finished practice yesterday a little bit early, confidence beaming from that. This morning, I asked Josef if you could give yesterday a score out of 100, what would it be? And he said, he thought about it for a second, and he said, I'm going to give yesterday a 93 out of 100, so just 7 points to a perfect score. He said that's the start of an A+ bracket. I'm feeling good and I'm ready for today. Today they are going to do race running, check all the boxes that they need to. If they get to it, we might see some qualifying sims a little bit later, and that's the 2 of Josef Newgarden. Kevin, where are you?
I'm in the Scott Dixon pit, Georgia. This is the second winningest driver all time in IndyCar, a 6-time champion. So I have good and bad news for Dixon. The bad is that an engine failed yesterday afternoon, and they had to make an engine change last night. The good is that it failed last night. In fact, on the very last lap of practice, the fuel light was on. Had it lasted 1 more lap, they would have started practice today on that engine. It fails. Then they would have missed most of the practice session today and been a little bit behind. Back to some bad news. They're going to be over the 5-engine allotment by the time they get to Detroit. So this is a brand new engine today, but they will take it out at the end of the day, put it back into Detroit. That will be engine 5, a 9 grid spot penalty. No matter how many engines you've used at Indianapolis, there are no grid penalties for the Indianapolis 500. Here's what's also new. For the first time that most of us can remember, all of the Hondas are changing into their race engine at the end of the day today. They're going to use it for qualifying in the race. Normally it's a fresh engine after they get through qualifying. So you might see some Hondas even finish up the day a little bit early today to get a head start on that engine change. One thinks maybe they feel like they've found something and really want to see it in use in qualifying this weekend. What do you think, guys?
Wouldn't be the first time. I've raced here with a Honda when a new spec came at this exact moment, and it was a definitive step. You just never know.
It's an interesting conversation to be having, though, because again, it is a little bit uncharacteristic to have that engine change done before qualifying weekend. Normally we get through qualifying weekend, a fresh motor goes in for the Monday practice. That's what you're going to run for the race. But the fact that they want their entire lineup to change engines before qualifying tells me they think they've got an ace up the sleeve.
Smells like horsepower, Will.
We've all learned something already here in the first 15 minutes of traffic running here at the Speedway.
Early dicing out on track. Palou putting the moves on. Connor Daly putting the moves on. It's fascinating, Townsend, what you said earlier today about how Palou, with that incredible speed yesterday, must have a good car in traffic. When I spoke to him this morning, he said it's the one thing that he doesn't have right now, is a car that he feels is good in traffic. That's what he's working on this morning. says Alex Palou. He needs a car that is better in traffic. And when I asked him who he's looking out for on track, he said the one guy that really impressed him yesterday, the one guy that he's worried about, is Josef Newgarden.
And we've been watching this hybrid percentage. We have an updated graphic overnight. Great job from the Fox Sports team to give us live percentages. And let's see what Josef does here as he peels off turn 2. That thing's sitting steady at 95, 96%, and he opts not to deploy, just to tuck in, ride for a bit. But there's a paddle on the back of the wheel where Josef can recharge and deploy at his discretion.
It can also be set up to be automatic, as we see him setting up Scott Dixon here flat through turn 4. Watch for that hybrid deployment. You see it depleting in the graphic. Great run here on the number 9. And that's with the number 9 in a big draft, and the whole field's checking up in front of him, down to 189 miles an hour going into the corner. That required a little bit of brake pressure, not something that's comfortable to do here at the Speedway. Really upsets the balance of the car. Now he's got a great run on Castro Neves as well. Guys getting checked up, car down low. It gets a little bit manic already here in the first 20 minutes.
This feverish work going on the number 18 car of Rinus VeeKay.
And not rare to see, you know, mechanics working on a race car. A little rare to see a couple IndyCar officials there. We saw an AMAR safety member walk by as well. Not sure exactly what it is that they're looking at on the right rear corner of Rinus VeeKay's machine, but clearly some interest from the officials on what's happening.
Sometimes this is because an official reported trackside, maybe some fluid, some smoke or something, as we take a closer look at either a tether. It looks like some of the foil that protects the suspension A-arm. So there might be 2 issues here. I'm seeing a flapping piece of foil that might have come off this forward A-arm. If you notice on the right-hand side, you'll see 2 pieces of heat protection foil covering the upper A-arm. So I think we might have 2 things. This, and then also a sensor cable that looks to be loose, or a tether. Could be a suspension tether.
I think it's a tether.
But it almost looks like it's got a data connection on the tip of it. Anyways, either way, good eyes out on the Speedway from IndyCar officials to spot that, bring the car to pit lane, and have a closer look.
Now, one guy I was talking to over breakfast this morning who was really unhappy with how his week had run so far, standing by with Georgia, Santino Ferrucci. How is he, Georgia?
Well, Santino Ferrucci in the car right now. He briefly got out, was very frustrated. And as we remember from yesterday when we talked to him, he was frustrated back then too. They were trying to find speed. He didn't feel comfortable. They made some extensive changes, went back out towards the end of the day yesterday, and still was not happy. Made some more changes than today, went out there, and as we see, he sits 27th on the board. He's turned 4 laps, came in, got out of the car, incredibly frustrated, and immediately got back in the car. So they are throwing everything at this 14 car right now to find speed.
Thank you, Georgia. Yeah, I spoke to Santino this morning, guys, and his exact words were, I can't turn in. I have no confidence in the car. The rear is too loose on entry. It starts to slide. I go to correct it, and just as I go to correct it in the mid-corner, the front suddenly engages, and then it wants to shoot me off into the wall. He tried to put on last year's setup of the car. It's made no difference. When I sat with him today, he said, I'm considering running David Malukas' setup on the car, which is completely the opposite of what I would normally like from a car. They're trying everything, and he can just find no comfort in that car at all. His exact words were, we're 2 days behind and $2 short.
So the question I have is, why in the world, with the Penske partnership, would you not just walk over to the garage of the 2 car of Josef Newgarden, take the setup sheet, say thank you very much, hand it to your crew chief, and say number for number, put exactly that on the race car?
I've talked to Santino Ferrucci about this exact thing before. When this partnership first started, I said, hey, so are you kind of adopting a lot of their setups and learning to drive those? He goes, on the road courses, street courses, yeah. On the ovals, no. I run my own program. I've got a car that I like to drive. I can't drive their cars at all. So he's on a little bit of an island. He's got a very aggressive style. We've seen it be very successful. In fact, I think there were some examples. That won't be allowed.
No.
That's going to be called in immediately. You cannot have all 4 wheels go over that white line to driver's right. Santino knows that, but this guy's, the frustration is creeping in, the concern is creeping in. That's a rookie move from a veteran driver.
Yeah, let's take a look again at this apron rule. So you have, is that Devlin DeFrancesco, who's waiting to catch the back of the group, and Santino passes him on the short chute, which is part of the racetrack. You could do that, but you cannot go four wheels over the white line right here. And does he?
Yeah.
Just. Maybe he was forced there. We'll see how race control treats that.
It's being kind, I think.
But listen, for Santino to catch the group, he's probably wondering, why is Devlin soft pedaling it out of the pits?
Devlin, I think, actually came in off the track and was cooling down. I think he took that
qual sim
after a qual sim.
Either way, Ferrucci coming to pit lane, and probably because race control, and now we hear officially, yes, indeed, it's a drive-through penalty for the 14. Now, we've seen this out of Santino in prior years, getting a little frustrated and letting the emotion take over a little too much. It's a practice day. Got to stay calm, stay in the zone.
We look at the number 15. One of the big stories to emerge in the first half hour of practice here is the fact that championship leader Alex Palou has had a major issue. Looked like an oil leak. Kevin's down in his garage. Kev, what can you tell us, mate?
So I would say the news is better. When you hear that Scott Dixon lost an engine at the end of yesterday, you see some grease, you start to fear, but they're just simply changing out the drive shaft boot. This is an area that retains the grease for the drive shaft, so nothing major. Engine is fine. This is a pretty quick fix. They will go ahead and assess some other things while they're back here as well, but no major issue for Alex Palou, and he'll be back on his way shortly.
Well, that will be relieving for Palou, his crew, and all of his fans.
He's out there.
Marco Andretti, I think, has just gone back out on track. Kevin can update us on him.
Well, just big picture for the week, and often Hinch and Townsend will joke that no one's better about finding a draft and putting a big lap down than Marco Andretti. He's been able to do that, but he hasn't done that so far this week, and there might be a reason. He's not on full power. So we were talking about many of the, actually all of the Hondas that are full season programs are going to make an engine change before qualifying. That is different than the normal protocol. But if a one-off team, meaning this is the only race that you run, it's the engine you get for the entire month. So Marco Andretti is on his qualifying and his race engine. So to make sure it lasts, it is essentially turned down. It is detuned, so he's not at 100% power. So he knows that. They've done nothing but work on race running. He will get it turned up. Everyone gets more power tomorrow, but he will be on equal footing as the other Hondas, and then we'll get a really good sense of what his pace is. He says the car feels okay, and he's optimistic he can make something out of this return.
Yeah, it can be frustrating as a driver when you know you're running around with a slightly detuned engine, but at the same time, it's necessary to make sure you've got all the best everything behind you when it comes to qualifying, and most importantly, when it comes to the race.
3 cars in line until they're not.
I love this. 3 wide into turn 1 award using the double draft on Lundgaard, his teammate, and the car in front manages to get a twofer, 2-1 from the outside. You see that you really do have that extra head of steam with a double draft. There's Will Power stuck in the middle. Driver in the middle usually has to be the one to dump out. Will doing, understanding that in practice it's not worth anything.
We talked about the difference between passing and practice. That's not what it looks like on race day. It'll be fiercely contested and can oftentimes end in tears and a shower of parts down in turn 1 as everybody wants to own the apex there.
So Scott McLaughlin heads out for a qualifying run before he gets flying around the circuit. Kevin, what do you know about Graham Rahal?
So I heard what Hinch was talking about, and we've seen some pictures back in the garage of them wrapping another car. I think that is just standard operating procedure, that the backup car is prepared and they want the sponsor logos on it. If they were thinking about a chassis change, I don't know they would tell us until that actually happens, but I don't think it's all going great. Let's listen to Graham Rahal radio as he was coming in for this pit stop.
Okay. Sorry, man. It's just not acceptable. Like, this rear wobbles around like crazy. I'm not about to crash this thing today. I'll do that on Saturday, but not today. It's just not good. It's just the rear is, I don't know.
And then he also came back and said, I don't understand. My teammates can do 4 consecutive laps. I cannot.
Wow.
15. Let's take a look now at a driver and a team who might be the happiest up and down pit lane. What does McLaughlin do here? Let's watch the hybrid percentage. This would be a warm-up lap.
Yeah, so you just saw him make an adjustment on the wheel. That was turning into the full boost map, coming to finish the warm-up lap. Essentially, this would be coming to the green flag to start a run.
This would be green flag.
That's what I said.
I mean, you could do it for a living on pit lane, James.
I might have a career in this. You never know. And
holding it flat, around 221, 220.
So that hybrid, I know it says 95%. There's small errors in the measurements. That's a charged pack right now. Not apparently having the same kind of strategy that we saw out of his teammate Newgarden yesterday. There's the shift up to 6th gear. You see those lights on the dash going to full red, almost touching the limiter, not quite getting there. Imagine you'll see a downshift coming as he goes into the headwind.
Nope.
Wow, he's holding 6th gear.
One thing I'm not seeing, guys, is fast jack usage.
Unless he's got it set up on the buttons on the back of the steering wheel, something we don't have a great view of right now. But these are pretty honest runs right now for McLaughlin. That was a 222.1. That puts him by a good chunk up to the fastest no-toe time that we've seen.
Dude looks pinned.
Oh, he's pinned.
No hybrid use yet either, suggesting that he may save it all for that last lap.
But take electronics out of the equation. Look at how calm the hands are. The balance looks exceptional.
And you can tell because he's not made any adjustments to the weight jacker or to the roll bars either. And now he's holding 5th gear.
Halfway. 2 more, please.
So you see the engine heats up. The power generating is not quite as good. You can't quite get that peak performance out of it, so he's not able to pull that 6th gear on the front straight.
And with every corner, tire wear generates a little less grip.
Second lap for McLaughlin, a 222.2.
Front bar change. He went a little bit softer on the front bar with his right hand.
And a 3.
A little bit of hybrid being deployed through the final couple of corners, all the way through.
Trying to keep that speed up as he heads into that headwind.
See if that did anything for him on hybrid.
It's a great run. That was smooth as silk.
That lap,
219.3.
That lap was bigger, 222.7.
That was the hybrid juice as well.
Yeah, so that you
so
can
it
see
did give him a half a mile an hour.
It did. It gave him a nice little boost. And then he's just going to try to carry that for the rest of the run. Not a lot of adjustments to the handling of the car,
but no regen taking place at this point. So this is completely different than what Newgarden did yesterday when he was practicing. He was regenning and deploying, and we're just seeing that one deployment a lap ago for McLaughlin.
So he finishes across the line, final lap of 222.4.
Wow.
So not a big fall off at all. That's a stout run.
Okay, whose careers could change the most with the win? Who has the most value from an Indy 500 win? It's Connor Daly of the names we just mentioned.
You talk about all or nothing.
All or nothing, 100%.
That would be everything for a guy like Connor. And like
talk about the party post race. I want to be in that room.
Oh, he'd skip Detroit for sure.
Do you know what? He'd skip the milk. He'd be straight in the snake pit.
He'd skip Detroit because he'd be somewhere in Mexico and wouldn't be able to get Detroit.
Guys, I just want to go back. We just saw a pass, some of the running we're watching right now. Christian Rasmussen on Nolan Siegel into turn 3. It was a late pop, Townsend. And look, this is a young driver that we have seen some spectacular performances from in terms of bravery, overtaking moves, putting the car where people don't expect it to be. He was one of the guys that was really taking big risks early in the week in practice last year, and then we saw it again in the race. Frankly, we saw it all season long from him, and kind of picking up where he left off here as he now goes toe-to-toe with Alex Rossi.
Goes to the front. Now, at the back of this group, thank goodness, another blue and white car to the IndyCar field. Overnight, David Malukas and AJ Foyt Racing announcing a new primary sponsor. This car was all red and white.
Thank goodness it's another blue and white car.
Well, happy that they got a primary sponsor. Makes our job a little more difficult, but I'm going to call it out by the distinction of the light baby blue mirrors and end fences.
So look, we were talking earlier about this pass of Rasmussen on Siegel. So here we are out of 2 down the back straight, and look, there's kind of a time where you know to bail out of it. They're already turning in, and he just fires it in there, and Siegel wasn't too thrilled about it.
Rasmussen is such a f***ing idiot. Add him to like the mega shit. He's already on the list of idiots, but there are too many of them. He's like above everyone else. 10-4.
Copies and 10-4s from the timing stand.
I can feel it based on what I just saw. That was throwing caution to the wind for sure down there.
Let's talk some more about Alex Palou, who we had a little fear of, but it was just a minor issue. They made the change. So checking in with them this morning, the plan was simply to do race running today. Alex told me maybe we'll see what everybody else is doing, and maybe we'll consider some qualifying runs and simulations later in the day. But the plan is that we are likely going to focus on what we can do with the race car preparing for a week from Sunday. Now, his dominance starting this season, which is almost unprecedented. Been asking, as we all have, other drivers, why is he so strong right now? One theory out there, I'll let Townsend and Hinch debate this a little bit, is he has adapted to the extra weight of the hybrid better than everyone else. He was already really good, but he is shockingly good compared to some of the all-time greats right now.
Sounding like Kyle Kirkwood has some strong advice for some other drivers out on track. We'll hear some radio from him.
Yeah, he struggled, but he just decides to not pass as well, so even when I was trying to let him by.
So that's some sage advice for Pato O'Ward, apparently.
Oh, yeah, so that's Kirkwood talking about the guy we're looking at here, Pato O'Ward, and this is one of the etiquette rules here at Indy. That's Kyle trying to lift and let Pato by. There's kind of an unspoken rule when you're running in traffic. At some point, you've got to lead. And let's listen here. You see how early he's lifting off. Could have easily gone by.
We don't know how many laps Kyle led for, though.
No,
Pato might have said, hey, I led you for 2. You got to give me 2. Who knows?
It sounds, based on Kyle's complaint, it sounds to me like that's not the case. At some point, you know, you do have to lead the pack. You've got to pull guys around. Then you can fall back and get your, experience running in dirty air. You see a nice swap there up at the front with Scott Dixon. And who was that? 66 and Marcus Armstrong. So there is a little bit of an, if you just sit back, it's like the guy who sits back in the peloton and never leads up front and burns his legs out. You got to play both roles at some point. Again, he's just kind of happy in a sense with the fact that the conditions have almost been a little bit different, certainly different enough each day. As we see Palou there, late move.
Ooh, Rasmussen
thought about going with him, and in a rare moment of clarity decided that it's not the best move in practice.
Oh, he's wiggling there on the apron in turn 2. I think Castroneves happy to let him by, but looked like a bit of a slide from Rasmussen. I'm sure team owner Ed Carpenter, who follows just a quarter second behind, wonder what he might, how he might coach his young talent after this session.
I wonder if the tires are getting old or if the wind's picking up. Considering that we have to move tomorrow towards a qualifying setup and really dial that in, is this the last opportunity for race setup running, or does Monday's practice session then suddenly become even more important?
Mondays definitely becomes more important. I mean, carb day ultimately is you're putting your best foot forward and you're tuning it on the day. There's no major wholesale changes happening after that. You kind of have to run what you brung once you pack it up at carb day. So Monday can be very useful. That 2-hour practice session added to the calendar a few years back can be very, very helpful. And for a team like this, for a guy like Graham Rahal, they might be really relying on that to make those final big swings, big adjustments, and then really just tune it in that final practice on carb day. But you see the practice speed right now. He's ranked 32nd out of 34. Again, those are toe laps. They don't mean everything, but it's more what he's saying that's concerning us.
And if that's a toe lap, then in how much trouble is he for qualifying? Do they have to now think, you know what, race stuff will come to? Right now it's about getting in the show. Is Graham Rahal staring at, and I hate to say it, is he staring at another difficult qualifying weekend?
I hate that you're saying it, but the reality is that might be the case. And let's see what he can do aboard this United Rentals machine. Warm-up lap of 210.
We saw some great onboard laps with McLaughlin earlier today, who still has the top no-toe speed of the day at 222.1. If Graham wants to be anywhere near, he needs to be entering turn 1 at around 221, 220 to have that kind of a lap time.
And it's really just struggling to get there. Can't even crack 220 going in. AZ flat. Balance doesn't look terrible. What we've been hearing the RLL drivers talk about is the rear on entries just not giving them that confidence, not giving them the feeling they want. Slight map adjustment. Maybe a little bit of a weight jacker adjustment there as well from Graham. Weight jacker 6. He's fast jacking, I think, on the back of the wheel. Well, a little bit of a moment there. Having to make a mid-corner correction, not a good feeling. That lap for Graham was a 2:18.5. More adjustments to the weight jacker. Looks like he's moving weight to the right. That's trying to take some front grip essentially out of the car. The rear not giving him what he wants. That lap a 2:16.9. Big drop off.
Not fun behind the wheel at the moment for Graham Rahal.
So you see that's a weight jacker 6. That's a setting. Essentially, you do that fast jacker. It moves the weight all the way right to try to get the rear of the car down. Big lift.
Yeah.
Big lift from Graham Rahal. That number, that 6, is just kind of what the weight jacker is going to reset to when he gets to the corner. What he actually wants it to be for the balance mid-corner. He's gone to weight jacker 7, so that tells me, again, he's trying to add a little more right front weight. Not happy with the back of the car, even though it looked like it was understeer down in turn 3. There's the hybrid. You see that, the purple display lighting up there. There's the purple again. He's deploying that hybrid. You see it. It's deploying very slowly. Different strategy here from what we've been seeing, Will. That's a very slow deployment. You can burn the entire pack in about 4 to 5 seconds. We see another huge lift for Graham.
Every lap through 3.
2:16.3 was that last lap. This should be his final one. He'll burn the remainder of the hybrid. He's not even going to get all the way done the hybrid.
Still got 50% of it left. And that was what we were talking to some of the drivers about earlier this week. They said the last thing you want on a 4-lap run is to have anything left in that battery at all when you cross the line.
But what I like about that is it's the first time we've seen a team that's kind of played with the rate at which the deployment happens.
To the 2, inconsistent, but the understeer in 3 is massive with the wind really killing me there. I mean, still, you can feel the market obviously a lot slower, but there is no lateral bite.
Hey, let's listen to a little bit of radio from what's going on out there.
I mean, it doesn't get better than that, and it's barely a 221. Yeah, this change needed to come with front weight. Falling out of 5th gear, I'm getting really fed up.
So, Marco Andretti, I believe, said it doesn't get any better than that, and I think he's talking about car balance, and he's saying that speed's not there, so that's probably a qual sim that they would have just put him on, and he's also complaining that it's not pulling 5th gear. Maybe he's not even seen 6th gear, and with the winds like they are, you can see the mechanic having a hard time just stabilizing the umbrella. It's pretty breezy out there. You know, maybe almost gusting to 15 miles an hour coming out of the south. So I think Marco's just starting to get frustrated at exactly the wrong time. He can't control it. The emotion is real, but in terms of timing, tomorrow all about qualifying practice, and then, boy, you do not want to be flirting with not making the show. And we can point to Graham Rahal feeling that way right now. Marco Andretti. Look at how perfectly AJ Foyt released their driver. There's an art to timing the release on pit lane so that your driver has a chance to pick it up. They might have waited just a tick too long, because it's going to take Santino, I mean, it would take him quite a while to tow back up here. Let's just ride for a lap and listen to potentially the revs climb as he picks up some of the draft. That's just what I was talking about, as I think that was Marcus Ericsson peeling off. So just 2 left to play with for Ferrucci. It's the 8 of Kiffin Simpson and the 98 of Marco Andretti. Now he's getting some help down the straightaway now. He's close enough to where he's going to start to suck up, and we'll see if Ferrucci stays last on the timing. Still 33rd. That was a 2:19.6, and big lift there from Ferrucci. So maybe all is not sorted, and now he'll come to pit lane, and I think there's a lot more work to do on the 14, because that sounded pretty evil for being 10 car lengths back.
Well, nice big group starting to form here with Palou, with Lundgaard, Rasmussen, with Larson, Armstrong.
We've got a spin.
And we've got Rasmussen around.
Amazingly keeps it off the wall. Guys, we talked about how he was one of the more aggressive guys. Townsend, you caught a twitch of his following, I believe it was maybe Castro Neves earlier in the day in turn 2.
Yeah, all good.
And 40 years after Danny Sullivan
way high
does the spin and win, at least for Rasmussen, just a brush of the wall as he runs high off of 2. And right here's the magic moment. Release the brakes, straighten the wheel, and save your race car. But I feel like this has been a bit overdue based on how aggressive he's been in practice.
Such a late spin. It's not often you have the chance to get the car all the way around and still be going in a straight line. He kind of saved it for a minute there. He was almost drifting it for a while. Larson doing a good job, not overreacting. It almost looks like a Daytona wreck.
And I think you make a great point. Of all the drivers that have seen that before, Kyle Larson may be the most experienced with somebody way sideways or backwards in front of him. With all of Larson's dirt track, stock car experience, he did just the right thing, kept his eyes high and his feet off the pedals.
And just aim for where they are.
Yeah.
And where they won't be in a moment. A very lucky Christian Rasmussen.
Back outside the infield care center, it's a mandatory trip after contact with the wall and you come to a stop. I guess if you're ever going to crash, this is the way to crash. What happened?
Yeah, I've been getting understeer through 2 all day, especially with where the wind direction is right now. So I was a little surprised by getting loose there. I just got loose in the middle of 2 and just kind of like was walking the car up, and then obviously just brushed the wall on the right rear. So yeah, I mean, shoot. That's what happens. It's obviously not where we want it to be, but I think we have fast cars around here, so I think it's still a positive day. Now I've gotten that out of the way, so now we move on.
The info the booth had said you were on a set of Firestones that were 31 laps old. That's farther maybe than you're ever going to run in the race. Is that true? What were you trying to learn at the end of that tire stint?
Yeah, they were definitely pretty deep. So maybe that was part of the problem. Just pushing a little bit too hard for how deep we were in the stint. Yeah, I mean, obviously trying to learn where the tire goes and how that all develops. And now we see where that developed.
The car shouldn't, I assume, take long to repair. Will you try to go back out later today?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very light. I don't know if there's even any damage. Maybe the right rear just touched a little bit, but we should be able to make it out today. Yeah, see, the boys are already on it, so it's yeah, great crew.
Thanks, Christian.
Right, we've got a bit of team radio from the 98.
How could we have lost the car? I don't understand. I say we prep for qualifying. I have no interest in running slow behind the whole pack again.
Yeah, this just goes back to what Kev reported on, you know, the fact that they're probably having to run that engine a little bit detuned, just being a month of May only driver. He's on a different engine cadence in terms of the rotation of the engines. We heard Palou say he's having a new Honda go in the back of his car tonight. I think that's true of all the full-time Honda-powered cars. So Marco's frustration is simply, hey, if I'm not running at the same power as everyone else, what are we learning running around at the back of a field, back of a line, just getting passed by everyone? And I get it. So
yeah.
Wants to go prep for qualifying and get ready for going fast tomorrow. You know, we're talking about the smallest amounts, but interesting to see drivers trying different things, as here we are now on board with Newgarden.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's no difference, because in the end it's energy, right? You're just spitting energy into the exact same test project, whether you do it over the course of 40 seconds or in 5 seconds.
Okay, so Josef Newgarden, fastest man on the track right now, doing this run. You see his left thumb going up on the fast jacker. It was a 2:18.9 was his last lap. He's out there almost by himself. Nice clean run. Car looks absolutely hooked up.
This could be humbling for a lot of the field right now. The number that pops up right here will tell us a lot about what it might take to be on the front row. 2:22.5. Okay, I'm getting pumped for tomorrow.
That's a lot closer to what we were expecting to see. That puts him right up to the top of the non-tow laps. Kyle Kirkwood right now second at a 2:22.3.
And that is exactly the range where Scott McLaughlin, Newgarden's teammate, was earlier.
He's regenning on the back straight.
One of the only drivers we've seen actively regenning on a quali sim, deploying multiple times, regenning multiple times. You see it being deployed there in the North Short Chute.
And regenning with the tailwind, like we talked about, maybe regulating the RPMs with the hybrid. Some cool stuff happening right now.
And that's a 2:22.3. So he's been able to regen and apply, and he's kept a pretty similar pace, 2:22.5 to a 2:22.3.
Coming off a 2, get that tailwind. You see the thumb go up. You see the charging happening. That's his right hand pulling in the clutch paddle. It goes up to the wheel right before it turn in. Now watch the deployment in the short chute again.
Between 3 and 4. And it's all through 4.
This is so different from what we've seen from almost everyone else.
Again, we don't know that that's the way to go. I know he's quick, but I think his car's quick. The question is it any better with that hybrid strategy? Remember what he was testing before. They'll have a very good body of work to analyze over the next 2 days before it counts for real.
2:21.850 on that last lap, so only marginal fall off again. Ideally, if you can keep your fall off to within a mile an hour, that's pretty stout. Anything less than that is very strong. 2:22.5 was that first lap, so he's still in that range.
So a half mile an hour loss between lap 2, lap 3. Let's see where he's at over the line this time.
And that's chicken flag, red 12, red 12.
It's a 2:21.6.
9/10, not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Will Power back out on track, so we are going to see something from the Penske's.
What a treat for happy hour. It's like one at a time. It's almost like there's been an agreement that everybody's going to go onesies.
Everybody wants their 4 laps of fame on FS1.
Bring it.
Getting the onboards, and it's just giving us such a good insight into the different strategies being employed here by the different teams.
And we talk about Penske, but yeah, they're in a good position. But what we know is these 3 guys, Power, McLaughlin, and Newgarden, are so fiercely competitive. The inter-team battle between these 3, if they are pole position contenders, which it certainly looks like they will, that's going to be something to watch. One of them has the fastest car of the 3. I'm not sure who it is yet.
All right, here's something I want you guys to pay attention to right now. We're in 4th gear, as you can see, full throttle. He's not accelerating. Why? Because he's in the cool engine mode. They're trying to keep the engines as cool as possible for as long as possible. He's going to get off of turn 2. His foot's not going to change. He'll make an adjustment on the steering wheel and then just listen and watch as that Chevy power plant ramps up. There's the engine map change.
Wow.
And you can hear it immediately just start pulling. He goes to the fast jacker. That's the left thumb up on that button, top left of the wheel. Flat through 3 and 4 as you wind this thing up. Try to spool it up.
Here we go. Here we go. Josef Newgarden was on rails. Let's see how he uses the hybrid. Let's see how he uses his tools. Let's see how he works this track, guys.
Watch him release his left thumb. That dumps the fast jacker and lowers the front end, pitches the car into its proper handling rake position. He'll keep it down through turn 2, and as soon as he's confident enough, watch the left thumb. Gonna dump that rear back, get the thing anti-dragged, rake back and as fast as possible.
He's got that Elio line kind of high in the corners, just kind of hovering above the white line in 1 and 2, just below it in 3 and 4. Slightly different or slightly similar strategy to what we saw from Josef Newgarden, deploying now down the front straight. So this seems to be the preferred route for Team Penske. Look, he can't keep his hands on the wheel. Fast jacker, hybrid deployment, adjusting the engine maps, flat out the whole time. Trying to think about what his car needs. Does he need to do a balance adjustment with the bars?
And you got to drive the thing.
That's what I'm saying. You're hustling these things. 220 miles an hour. Left thumb goes up. Right hand goes down. Charging the hybrid. Out of 3. Boom. Hits the button on the back of the wheel. Hybrid starts deploying.
What's the speed look like?
Interestingly, he's not hitting 6th gear. I wonder if it's a different gear strategy from what we saw at Newgarden.
First lap.
It's a 220.987.
Not nearly what Newgarden had.
No.
I had just said one of these guys has the fastest car, which also means one of the 3 teammates has the slowest car. It might be a little early, but I think we might be looking at the slowest of the 3 cars, and Will Power will not be happy about that.
Yeah, but the consistency, he went from a 220.996 to a 220.987, first lap to second lap. Let's see what the third lap is.
Ron Rzuski, strategist for Will Power and overall IndyCar program manager for the team, watches on.
220.951 was that?
Very consistent.
That's 3 laps in the 229s. That's 220.9s.
So
it's still
maybe
too slow despite the consistency.
But maybe Will's running more downforce than the other guys. If you're Team Penske and it's Thursday afternoon, yeah, run all 3 drivers in different configurations to get the data. So this could be a higher downforce config. That would explain the consistency and the lack of outright top speed.
Let's see his final time over the line.
Didn't go to the fast jacker on this last straightaway.
Oh, better.
221.2.
Is the backup car, is the next car going to be as good? Will it be as quick? Do they have time to build one as fast as the first one that he had? And that sounded like he's backing out of it.
Sounded like a splutter.
Or got a hard limiter hit. Oh, boy.
Using everything. He's done some hybrid regen. It was at 35. Now you see he's regenning a little bit more into 3, using that tailwind to his advantage.
So this would be the completion of the 4th lap.
As we just take another look at him high off of 2. That's good, man.
Close.
That's fine.
Why do I feel
fine.
like I've seen that 5 or 6 times out of Sato in turn 2 in qualifying trim?
Oh, that's being generous. I think it's more than that. I think he's so good at finding the limit of the racetrack there. Look at the dust coming off the tire. Final lap there, pick up a 220.267. So again, using that hybrid on a full deployment on that last lap.
Incredible speeds, an incredible number of laps that we've seen around the speedway today, guys. We're getting towards the end of time. Who's impressed you?
I mean, Newgarden, first guy that comes to mind. From the start of practice on Tuesday all the way through today, it looks under control, confident, determined. I don't even know that he needed to turn 1 lap as the checkered flag comes out. Newgarden, absolutely my pick. You, James?
I mean, yeah, Newgarden's the guy, but to me, McLaughlin was also very impressive. No, Penske car's not doing all the race running that we saw a lot of other cars doing, so it's tough to put a finger on that. But look, there's a lot of good stories up and down pit lane right now. A lot of drivers happy with their cars, quite a few unhappy.
And we've got the big news of a massive Honda engine change, all of them overnight. Brand new power units for tomorrow. How will that play out as we roll into Fast Friday?